Welcome to a place where history whispers and forgotten truths come alive. Here, we journey deep into the hidden corners of the ancient world, unraveling sacred texts, lost prophecies, and mysterious scriptures long buried by time. In this quiet space, you'll hear the stories they never taught you, from the forbidden pages of the Book of Enoch to the sacred verses preserved in the Ethiopian highlands. So close your eyes, breathe deeply, and let the past carry you to sleep. This is not just history, it's a return to what was once known and gently forgotten. Welcome to the journey. Don't forget to subscript and hit like button. Let us begin, not with a bang, nor with the fanfare of legend, but with the gentle hush of wind over stone and the soft pulse of memory beating beneath the soil. Close your eyes and listen to the footfall of sandaled feet on narrow paths, the distant hum of a ceremonial chant, and the slow rhythm of breath rising and falling in candlelit silence. Imagine a time before empires drew their borders in blood, before sacred texts were locked in vaults, and before voices were silenced by the rising tide of orthodoxy. The land we drift toward now is ancient Ethiopia, place not merely of geographical significance, but of spiritual gravity. Here, the earth itself seems to remember. Here, mountains do not merely stand, they watch. Rivers do not simply flow, they carry the whispers of prayers older than parchment. And somewhere, tucked between stone chapels and thorn trees, a manuscript waits bound in goatskin, inked in the sacred GS script, and guarded not with swords, but with silence. This manuscript is not just a book, it is a vessel of stories that were not lost, but hidden, preserved by the faithful who believed that some truths are too sacred to be shouted. Among these texts lies the Book of Enoch, forgotten gospel, a vision of heaven and rebellion, of watchers and giants, of knowledge granted and knowledge forbidden. Now let us drift back not decades, nor even centuries, but millennia, before Constantine, before Rome, before Jerusalem was claimed and reclaimed, to a time when Enoch walked the earth. Enoch, seventh from Adam, was no king. He bore no sword. He commanded no army. He herded no flocks. Yet the heavens opened for him, and he was taken. But why? Why Enoch? And what did he see? The Book of Enoch, preserved in full only in the Ethiopian tradition, answers this question, not with the brevity of Genesis, but with a chorus of visions so vivid they blur the line between dream and divinity. He saw the Watcher's 200 angels sent to earth to guide humanity, but seduced by the daughters of men. He watched as they descended upon Mount Hermon, forming a pact to do what heaven forbade, take human wives and beget children. These were no ordinary offspring. They were giants Nephilim whose appetites threatened to consume the world. But the story does not stop with sin. It expands. Enoch is taken by angels, not in death, but in awakening. He travels through layers of the heavens, where stars walk like sentinels and rivers blaze with fire. He hears the judgments pronounced on the fallen, the lamentations of the earth, and the cries of the righteous. He records everything, not for himself, but for generations yet unborn. So profound are his visions, so troubling their implications, that early church fathers could not ignore them, and so they erased them, not by fire, not by decree, but by neglect. Enoch's words were too dangerous, they whispered. They spoke of a divine order where angels could fall, where humanity could access celestial knowledge, where judgment was not exclusive to a chosen few. This was not the tidy world the councils sought to build. It was untamable. And so the Book of Enoch was cast out from the Western canon like the watchers from heaven. But Ethiopia remembered. While Europe debated dogma, Ethiopia preserved. While libraries were looted and scrolls burned in conquest, Ethiopian monks held vigil. Through famine, through war, through plagues and exile, they copied the sacred words by hand, their chants echoing in stone cells carved from mountain rock. They knew the power of what they held, and they chose to protect it, not with armies, but with prayer. Tonight, you rest in their legacy. Let your breathing slow now, and listen. The watchers are silent. The Nephilim are dust. But Enoch still speaks, and you are listening. Let us sink deeper now into the tale of the watchers, the first divine rebellion. Far above the earth, in the luminous realm where flame and form melt into pure essence, the angels looked down upon the world. They were not jealous, no, not at first. They were curious. These sons of heaven had been appointed guardians observers of human growth. They were to teach without interfering, to guide without grasping. But curiosity is a seed that blooms quietly. The humans, they were frail, flawed, fleeting, but they loved, they created, they laughed, even in sorrow. And among them were women whose beauty shone like the rising moon on still waters. The watchers gathered on a high place, a summit above the clouds, Mount Hermon. There, under the open stars, they swore an oath. 200 angels, led by a captain named Sanyeza. They vowed to descend, to take wives among the humans, to father children of their own. It was a union not blessed by the Creator. It was a choice against the fabric of order. And so the watchers fell. They taught men the secrets of metal, turning earth into swords. They taught women the art of enchantment, painting their eyes with forbidden minerals. They read the stars and told the futures, not as signs of wonder, but as tools of control. And from their union came giants, the Nephilim, towering beings with appetites unending. They devoured the cattle, they devoured the harvest, then they devoured mankind. Blood stained the rivers. Screams echoed through the valleys. The earth, it is said, groaned, and from the heavens, the angels who had remained loyal to the divine law wept for what their brethren had done. Then Enoch was called. He did not seek glory. He did not even seek answers, but the heavens chose him. Angels came to him in dreams dull, radiant beings with eyes like dawn. They lifted him gently, like a leaf carried by wind, and brought him into the halls beyond the veil. There Enoch saw the consequences of rebellion. He stood in the court of the Most High. He beheld the fate of the watchers, not death, but something more profound, eternal separation, chained beneath the earth until the end of days. Their children, the Nephilim, would be swept away in a great flood. But before judgment came writing. Enoch was charged to record what he saw. He wrote of the heaven's 7 layers of glory, each more dazzling than the last. He described beings of flame who never slept, wheels of fire that sang hymns of unending love, and vaults where stars were stored before being cast into the night sky. He wrote of the seasons, of how the sun knew its time to rise, how the moon kept its gentle count. He wrote of spirits, those of wind, of thunder, of snow. And he wrote of the great flood that would cleanse the world of its unholy mingling. But the most chilling pages are the ones written in mourning. For Enoch, in his heavenly journey, came to understand grief, not just of man, but of God. A sorrow that something pure had been defiled. A grief that even angels, who once sang beside the throne, could fall so far. And still, Enoch was not afraid. For in the midst of chaos, he saw a promiser Savior to come, a light that would pierce the deepest darkness. This too, he wrote. Now sleep finds you once more. The watchers have fallen, but you are safe. Enoch's words wrap around your thoughts like a soft blanket of forgotten wonder. And above it all, the stars continue to shine, just as he described. Now, dear listener, let us rise again, gently, as if lifted on the wings of dreams. You are no longer upon the earth, but floating above it, drifting with Enoch as he ascends through the heavens. With each layer, the world below fades into quiet and light. In the first heaven, Enoch saw the clouds, heavy and gray, filled with lightning and sound. Angels moved through the mist, tending the winds and guiding the rains. They bowed to him, this mortal now called to walk where few dared. In the second heaven there was darkness, a deep, silent place where angels who disobeyed waited in chains, suspended between time and judgment. Enoch turned away, guided upward. In the third heaven he beheld paradise, not a land of gold and gems, but a garden unlike any on earth, trees with leaves that healed, rivers that sang. The righteous walked in peace, their faces glowing with calm. Enoch wept, for he knew few would see this place, and fewer still believed it existed. Higher he rose. In the fourth heaven he saw the movements of the stars. The moon, delicate and watchful, bowed her silver head as she passed. The sun, regal and solemn, gave light not by fire, but by divine command. Angels stood guard at the gates of dawn and dusk, ensuring the balance of day and night. The fifth heaven was a place of warriors, angelic beings in armor of starlight, waiting for a battle not yet come. They sang songs of courage, their voices like thunder muffled by velvet. In the sixth heaven, the scribes of heaven worked. They wrote the deeds of every soul, recording thoughts as well as actions, choices as well as words. The air was filled with the soft scratching of quills, and with it the scent of memory itself. Every moment you have ever lived was remembered here. And then the seventh. Here Enoch stood before the throne. Not a seat, but a radiance, a presence, too vast for eyes, yet too tender to fear. There were creatures beyond form, singing in tongues not known to earth. Their praise never ceased, and it wrapped around Enoch like a cloak of wonder. And there, in that place of awe, the Lord spoke, not with words, but with understanding. You have seen, the voice said, you have known, now you must return. Enoch did not want to leave. Who would? But the message was clear. He was not taken for his own sake, but for yours, for all of us. He was shown the future floods, fire, kingdoms rising and falling. But he was also shown hope, a child born to bring peace, a path through suffering, a day when the heavens would descend once more, and with that Enoch returned. But he was changed, he wrote, day and night, by firelight and starlight. He wrote until the ink wore through his fingers. He passed the words on to his children, and they to theirs. Some were lost, some were hidden, and some, preserved by the keepers in Ethiopia, waited silently for the world to remember. Now you remember, too. Let this part of the journey settle over you, like fog on a quiet field. The heavens are behind us, but the path continues forward. Enoch is with us still, whispering truths wrapped in wonder, waiting in the turning of the stars. Now we descend slowly back to the earth, back to the soft hills of time and memory, where scrolls sleep beneath stone altars, and stories wait like seeds in dry soil. When Enoch's writings returned with him, they were not celebrated. No grand temple enshrined his words. No rulers wore his visions like jewels. Instead, his scrolls were tucked away, handed from one gentle hand to the next, copied quietly by monks who knew their value not in power, but in peace. But the world beyond Ethiopia was changing. Rome rose like fire on a cold night, and with it came order, and order, built not on mystery, but on doctrine. The Christian councils gathered, bishops debated, pages were chosen, and others discarded. Some books were lifted up, others were left behind. The Book of Enoch was left behind. Why? Because it spoke of angels too freely. It described a heaven too vast, a God too close, and a history too strange. It opened the heavens not just to prophets, but to mortals. And worse still, it claimed that divine beings could fall, that knowledge, sacred and dangerous, had once been shared and misused. So, the Church sealed its canon. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church did not. There, in the mountains and valleys of East Africa, Enoch's story lived on, passed from priest to priest, etched into parchment with hand-ground ink, sung in the ancient tongue of Ge'ez. The Ethiopian Bible, so much richer and older than its Western counterpart, held not only Enoch, but Jubilees, the Book of Adam and Eve, and visions lost to time. Yet outside Ethiopia, silence grew. For over 1,000 years, the Book of Enoch was gone from the West, forgotten by most, feared by some. Whispers of it surfaced in strange places, in the writings of mystics, in the dreams of desert monks, and in the symbols carved into the margins of medieval manuscripts. But it was not until the 18th century, when a Scottish explorer named James Bruce journeyed deep into Ethiopia, that the book returned. He did not know what he carried when he brought the manuscripts home. He did not know that the dust on those pages would shake the very foundations of biblical scholarship centuries later. And yet they did. But tonight, let us not race to discovery. Let us pause instead in the long exile of the text. Imagine it now resting quietly in a monastery of stone and silence. A candle flickers. A monk chants in Gies, the same chants sung 1,000 years before. Outside, the wind stirs the grass. The sky is full of stars, perhaps even the same stars Enoch saw in the fourth heaven. Here, memory lingers. Here, exile ends not in return, but in quiet endurance. Sleep now, if you like. The book was never truly gone. It waited, like a lamp left burning in the window of history, for someone to come home. And perhaps you have. Now let us wander deeper still, into a place between the written word and the whispered world. A place where stories hide, not in shadows, but in plain sight, where truths are spoken softly, so only those who listen slowly can hear them. You see, while the Book of Enoch lay sleeping in Ethiopian monasteries, its fingerprints never fully faded. Like a dream, half remembered, echoes of its verses stirred in the words of prophets, mystics, and visionaries throughout the ages. In the Book of Judaism, even in the canon of the West, you'll find a peculiar passage, a verse, brief but strange, quoting Enoch directly. Behold, the Lord cometh with 10,000s of his saints to execute judgment upon all. A fragment, but one that whispers of a missing whole. How curious, how deliberate. For the early church knew Enoch's writings. Some even revered them. Tertullian, a father of Christian theology, called the book sacred. He believed its visions were true, that its message warned of fallen angels and a corrupted creation. But others feared its reach. They feared the questions it raised. Could celestial beings really transgress? Could forbidden knowledge be passed down? Could humans humble, earthbound walk among stars? And so, over time, the book was silenced, not with fire, not with war, but with something far more effective: forgetting. It was not banned with trumpets or proclamations. It was simply not copied, not quoted, not read, and eventually not known. But in Ethiopia it remained. In every scriptorium where monks sang their prayers before dawn, in every ink-stained manuscript pressed between wooden covers, in every chapel nestled in mountain stone it remained. And the secrets it carried were not just of angels and giants. They were of cosmology, of time, of justice, of heavenly order and earthly corruption. Enoch told of portals in the skies, of stars that wept, of heavenly hosts grieving for mankind. He warned of spirits who whispered in dreams, of watchers who still watched, and of judgments not yet passed. He even described a calendar, yes, a sacred rhythm of days and seasons, far more precise than the lunar systems that followed. A calendar of 364 days, in harmony with the sun, where every season was balanced, every equinox expected. This calendar, too, was forgotten, and with it, a way of measuring not just time, but holiness. You may wonder now, were these mere myths? Were they metaphor? Or were they fragments of something much older, deeper, something truer than we dared to believe? You do not need to decide. You only need to listen. Let your breath slow, your muscles soften, your thoughts drift like mist across a quiet lake. For in these ancient tales, there is no need to arrive, only to journey. There is no need to prove, only to wonder. And wonder, dear listener, is where all truth begins. Even now, under your resting eyelids, the stars turn gently. The angels wait patiently. And Enoch still writes, somewhere beyond the veil, in a tongue not yet forgotten. Drift now into an older silence, one wrapped in soil and shadow. We return to the earth, not to the lands we know, but to a time when mountains had no names and rivers ran wide and wild. The Nephilim giants, born of heaven and earth, still roamed the land. Their stories, though buried, still whisper beneath ancient rocks. These giants were not merely tall, they were overwhelming, strong beyond strength, cruel beyond cruelty. They brought with them the appetites of both sky and soil, and they devoured all in their path. Fields, animals, men, they ruled not by wisdom but by fear. The Book of Enoch tells us their names, strange names, like Arachiel, Ramiel, and Asael. Names long erased from most histories, but still pulsing like hidden roots beneath the surface of Scripture. Their fathers, the fallen angels, taught mankind the craft of war, the art of enchantment, the mysteries of the heavens. But these gifts were not for harmony, they were for power. It was the age of corrupted knowledge, of swords forged from stars, of spells whispered in the dark. And when the giants turned on each other, when they began to war for dominion over the very dust of earth, the blood spilled was so great, the soil drank it in, and the earth itself cried out. Enoch writes that the very elements mourned. The winds howled differently. The moon turned her face. The trees wept sap like tears. Even the beasts turned wild with sorrow. The cry rose to the heavens, and from that cry came the decision. There must be cleansing, not out of wrath, but out of mercy. A flood would come, but not before one more message. For Enoch, beloved of heaven, was sent to the watchers who had caused it all. He was to deliver their sentence, not as a judge, but as a witness. He stood before them, those towering fallen beings, now chained and trembling. He told them their children would be destroyed, that they too would be cast into darkness, bound until the day of final judgment, and they wept. Enoch says their tears were endless, that they begged him to intercede, to ask God for mercy on their behalf. He did. He returned to heaven. He knelt. He asked, but the answer was silence. Even in heaven, there are some wounds that cannot be unmade. And so, Enoch returned once more, and he told them, no peace shall you have. The watchers fell into despair. The Nephilim fell into dust, and the rain began to fall. Now rest, dear listener. Let the storm pass softly in your thoughts. Let the rain fall, not as destruction, but as renewal. The flood was not the end of hope, it was the washing of the world. A deep breath, a long sleep, and in that sleep, perhaps we may glimpse the dreams of giants before they were forgotten. The waters receded, slow as the breath of a sleeping god. What had once been a world of towering cities and whispered enchantments was now washed. Clean mountains softened, valleys reshaped, the bones of the giants buried deep beneath layers of silt and silence. The earth was quiet again. And into this hush stepped a family Noah, his wife, his sons, and their wives, blinking into the light of a world reborn. The sky was brighter somehow, but sadder too, it remembered. Noah was not just a builder of arks. According to the Book of Enoch, he was marked from birth, his skin glowing, his eyes like the sun. Some believed he was not entirely of this world, that a divine light coursed through his veins. He was a bridge, like Enoch before him, between the realms of man and the echoes of heaven. It is said that Noah carried with him not just animals and food, but knowledge, sacred books, words handed down through generations, from Adam, from Enoch, from angels long fallen. These were not ordinary scrolls. They contained maps of the heavens, secrets of time, the names of stars that no longer shine, recipes for healing, laws of harmony, prophecies yet to unfold. But much of it was buried, not with water, but with fear. For after the flood, mankind became cautious of too much knowledge. They remembered what happened when heaven's fire mixed with earth's clay. They built slowly, they prayed simply, and the stories of angels, of watchers, of giants were told only in whispers until they too faded. Only in Ethiopia, that old mountain cradle, were they kept alive. The Ethiopian Bible, older, deeper, richer than most others, preserved these truths not as legend but as scripture. Their monks did not fear the old names. They chanted them by candlelight. They painted them into manuscripts with golden halos and wings spread wide. They remembered, while the Western world built its theology like a fortress, brick by brick, gospel by gospel. Ethiopia laid down its canon like a garden, wide, fertile, and open to the strange flowers of heaven. And in that garden the Book of Enoch bloomed. But outside, silence. The bones of giants turned to stone. The watchers turned to myth. And the world, lulled by simpler tales, forgot the complexity of the beginning. Tonight, let us remember. Let the wind through the trees be the voice of ancient angels. Let the distant thunder echo the judgment long past. Let the hush between heartbeats be the silence of post-flood earth. You are safe now, drifting gently in the cradle of time. The flood is behind us. The story still flows forward, and in the quiet, something stirs. Sleep now with the stars above and the ground below. For beneath the soil, old things remain. The flood may have silenced the giants, but not all was washed away. In the forgotten layers of the earth, in the caverns and hollows where no light reaches, the watchers still linger, not in body, but in memory, in echo, in the trembling dreams of humankind. The Book of Enoch tells us they were cast into the earthbound in darkness until the day of judgment. They were not killed. They were kept, chained in prisons of shadow, beneath the roots of mountains, far below the rivers and stones. And there they wait, their minds like flames that never die, their remorse or Ragnarok. You may not see them, but their whispers remain. Sometimes they rise in dreams. A voice you do not know calls your name. A glowing figure stands in your doorway just before you wake. Sometimes you feel a chill, though the air is warm. These, some say, are their echoes. Their punishment was not simply exile, was watching the world rebuild without them, watching their children, the Nephilim, erased from memory, watching the sky once again fill with clean stars. They were the teachers once, the givers of secrets, and now they are forgotten by most, but not by all. The Ethiopian texts do not fear them. They do not shun the truth of what was. They hold their stories with sacred caution, like one might hold a candle in a dark cave, carefully, respectfully, fully aware of the danger, but unwilling to look away. And within those stories, there is more than fear. There is a warning. The Book of Enoch says that the Watchers corrupted the hearts of humankind, but also that humankind welcomed them, that men desired the knowledge of heaven, but not the responsibility. It was a mirror, and in that mirror we still gaze. Today we seek knowledge in our own ways. We build towers, not of stone, but of data and screens. We unlock secrets of the stars with machines. We speak to invisible forces across great distances. But with every advance, do we listen for wisdom or only power? Enoch warned that when knowledge grows without humility, the Watchers stir again, not in form, but in influence. So tonight, as you drift, ask no questions, only listen. The Watchers are not near, but their story is. Fold yourself in that thought, like a blanket drawn over the soul. The wind outside is just the world remembering. The hum of night is time turning, slow and steady. Let the fire of memory burn softly, now not as fear, but as light. For, even in the deepest shadows, truth can flicker gently, like a lamp left lit for those who still seek. Now close your eyes and imagine not the earth, but the sky. A sky untouched by cities, free from smoke and steel. A sky so vast, so clear, that every star breathes softly against the dark, each a name, each a note in a song only the ancients remembered how to hear. Enoch heard it. In the quiet, lonely watches of his journey, Enoch was taught the language of the stars. Not astrology, not superstition, but order, harmony, a divine calendar written not in ink, but in light. In his visions, he was shown the circuits of the heavenly luminaries. The sun, the moon, and the stars each had paths, seasons, appointed times. The year, he said, was not meant to be a mystery. It had structure, sacred rhythm, 364 days, in perfect balance, 4 seasons, 12 months. Each day counted, every equinox held in its place, like a note in an eternal hymn. This too was forgotten. The world turned toward lunar cycles, fluctuating, imperfect. Calendars shifted, holy days wandered, seasons lost their rhythm. But in the Book of Enoch, the stars never falter. They rise and set in appointed turns. The sun, Enoch wrote, travels through 12 gates in the east and west, bringing day, then night, with unwavering patience. And the moon traces her own path, waxing and waning like a breath, a silver prayer across the heavens. Enoch was told that this celestial harmony mirrored a deeper truth. When humanity lives in step with the heavens, peace blooms like a flower in spring. But when we drift, when our time falls out of sync, so too does our spirit. In the Ethiopian tradition, This ancient calendar still whispers through certain prayers and fasts, hidden like pearls beneath layers of ritual. They do not forget. For them, the stars are still teachers. You see, this was part of what made the Book of Enoch unsettling to later theologians. It offered a worldview older than Moses, wider than dogma. It described a universe alive with purpose, where stars had voices and time was sacred. But such things are difficult to contain, so it was set aside, labeled strange, banished to the edge of orthodoxy, and yet it survived. Not just on the shelves of Ethiopian monasteries, but in the hearts of those who listened. The farmers who knew when to plant by the stars, the poets who gazed upward and saw meaning in the night, the children who dreamt of angels, though they had never heard their names. Tonight, let us remember that rhythm, not by calculation, but by breath. Inhale slowly as the sun enters its gate. Exhale gently as the moon bows to the horizon. Let each heartbeat be a star crossing the sky. Let each blink be a turning season. You are part of that ancient song, still playing, still heard, still holy, and so we rest beneath a sky that remembers us, even when we forget ourselves. Let your mind wander now, not into the heavens, but into halls of stone and gold, into places where kings sat high on thrones and scribes etched power into parchment. For not all that was forgotten was lost by accident. Some stories were silenced on purpose. After the flood and the fading of the watchers, humanity slowly built again. From the deserts of Mesopotamia to the green banks of the Nile, empires rose. Babylon, Assyria, Egypt, each with their own gods, their own stars, their own scrolls of origin. But within the thread of all these stories, something flickered. Echoes of older truths, shadows of giants, whispers of heavenly beings who once walked among men. The Book of Enoch did not fade into dust because it was false. It faded because it was inconvenient, as new rulers claimed divine right. They did not want tales of angels who defied heaven. They did not want visions of judgment that came from beyond the throne. They did not want prophets who walked with God without temple, without priest, without permission. So when the sacred texts were gathered, when the libraries were built, when the councils met, when the boundaries of Scripture were drawn, Enoch stood at the edge, quiet and strange. He was too ancient, too mystical, too full of stars, too dangerous. And so, page by page, he was left behind, not burned, just not copied, except in Ethiopia. There, a different spirit moved. There, the scriptures breathed wider, and the canon opened its arms to the older voices. There, the story of Enoch was not feared, but cherished. They did not ask, "Does this fit our system?" They asked, "Does this speak truth?" And it did. Even now, the Ethiopian Bible stands as the most expansive of all biblical canons. It holds books, long forgotten jubilees, Enoch, first and second Maccabean books that sing with ancient voices. It is a library of remembrance, a treasury of echoes, a defiant archive of stories that refused to be erased. Tonight, as you drift toward sleep, Think not of what was lost, but of what was kept quietly, faithfully, on a high mountain under the Ethiopian sun. Think of the monks wrapping old pages in cloth. Think of the ink-stained hands writing Enoch's visions by candlelight. Think of the gentle rustle of parchment as prayers rise. Not all preservation is loud. Sometimes it is as soft as sleep, and just as powerful. Let us return now to Enoch himself, to the man who walked with God, but because he was taken, the scriptures say it plainly, and Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. But what does that mean? Close your eyes and imagine a quiet path through a forest of starlight. Enoch walked this path alone, though he was never truly alone. He was guided by angels Uriel, Raphael. Gabriel led through the dimensions of heaven like a guest in a vast and echoing palace. Each level revealed something new. In one realm, the spirits of the stars sang in harmony. In another, the storehouses of the winds were kept behind golden gates. In yet another, the souls of the righteous rested like candles in a sea of calm. Enoch was shown the secrets of time, the counting of years, the punishment of fallen ones, and the eventual return of justice to the world. He was shown the throne of God not with eyes of fear, but with eyes of awe, and in that light he was changed. He did not belong to the earth anymore. He had become something else. A bridge between heaven and humanity, a witness to things unspeakable and yet written. The Book of Enoch was not simply a record, it was a warning, a comfort, a lantern left behind for those walking in shadow. But such a light was too bright for some. Over the centuries, many questioned how one man could know so much, how he could visit the stars, how he could speak with angels. They doubted, and then they dismissed. But the Ethiopian monks did not. In the hush of their mountaintop libraries, they still whisper Enoch's name. They chant his words by firelight. They read his visions as one might read the stars on a still, cloudless night. To them, Enoch is not just a prophet, he is a traveler, a watcher who watched the watchers, a sleeper who never slept, but who now watches from afar. And perhaps, when the sky is very quiet, and your heart is still as a pool, untouched by wind, you too might hear his footsteps in the stars, soft, patient, always moving forward. Tonight, as you rest, know this: the journey of Enoch was not one of power, but of peace. He walked away from the chaos of men into the calm of eternity. And we, with closed eyes and open hearts, can walk with him still. Sleep now, and listen not to thunder or trumpet, but to the dust. Yes, the dust speaks, not in words, but in memory. For every step you take upon this earth treads lightly upon the remnants of something older, cities lost beneath roots and soil, names erased from stone, and voices buried deep beneath centuries of silence. But the Ethiopian Bible, it listens. It does not rush toward the familiar names of kings and battles. It kneels by the forgotten ones. It opens the door to the books left out, and calls back the prophets whose voices were nearly lost. Take Baruch, for example, Jeremiah's faithful scribe, a man who wept over the ruins of Jerusalem. In the West, his words faded, but in Ethiopia, they are sung still. And the Maccabean texts, not the Maccabees you may know, but ancient Ethiopian warriors of faith, fighting not only armies, but forgetfulness. These were the books that didn't make it into the standard Bibles. Not because they were false, but because they were inconvenient. They spoke of resilience, of the power of humble faith, of the strength found in loss and exile, of angels who walked beside shepherds, and visions granted to the quiet-hearted. They spoke too plainly, too deeply, and so they were removed. But the Ethiopian canon, vast and wide, like a valley cradled by mountains, made room for them. Even now, within its pages, you will find stories that feel like dreams, soft, solemn, glowing with mystery, not polished for power, not edited for doctrine, but kept because they meant something true. Tonight, you may hear the voice of one of those prophets in your dreams, not loud, not stern, but patient, like a candle at the foot of your bed, a whisper in the wind outside, a line of ancient text drifting gently across the ceiling of your thoughts. You do not need to understand it fully, just receive it. The truth has never rushed. It waits quietly like the dust, and those who listen, they become part of the remembering. So rest now. You are closer than you know. Two voices long forgotten and love that never left. Let the hush of night guide you now. We walk not on roads of stone, but on the quiet path between stories, a path lined with ancient trees, whose roots dig deeper than time, and whose leaves whisper truths to those who dream gently. In the books preserved by the Ethiopian tradition, wisdom is not thunderous. It does not come in war or fire. It comes in stillness, in visions, in dreams. The Book of Enoch tells us the righteous are like trees planted by streams of living water. They do not rush, they do not boast, they endure, and so too does wisdom. She is spoken of in the Book of Enoch, not as an idea, but as a presence, a spirit, a being who descended from heaven to live among men, but humanity rejected her. She returned to the skies, weeping, and there she remains watching. Imagine her now, like a gentle figure walking through your mind, barefoot and cloaked in moonlight, leaving soft footprints on your thoughts. She has no need to shout. She waits for the listener, for the seeker, for you. This image of wisdom, of sacred truth, as feminine, patient, divine, is something the early scribes of Ethiopia embraced, not in fear, not in doctrine, but in reverence. The world may chase knowledge fast, loud, and bright, but wisdom walks slowly. She lingers at the edge of the firelight. She writes her truths in the lines of your palms and in the spaces between your breaths. The banned books, the exiled scriptures, they carried this spirit. Not just facts, not just names, but presence. And when those books were cast out, some thought they had silenced her. But you cannot silence a whisper. You cannot chain a breeze. And wisdom returns to those who wait for her. Tonight, do not reach for her. Let her reach for you. Do not chase. Do not speak. Just be still. Let the roots of your soul grow down into the soft, rich soil of old stories. Let the leaves of your spirit open to the stars above. You are a tree, you are a page, you are a temple of memory. And wisdom is drawing near, like a dream that lingers even after you wake. Let your breath soften now. Let your heart beat slow, for we are nearing the places where power rests quietly, not in temples of gold, not in the courts of kings, but in the forgotten valleys, where stone meets silence and sky presses close. There is a belief found in the whispers of ancient Ethiopian lore that the Watchers, those fallen angels from the Book of Enoch, were never entirely gone, that their presence lingers in the edges of things, in ruins lost to jungle and sand, in symbols carved where no hand now dwells. The world has tried to forget them, but the land remembers. A strange ruin in Lalibela, where the stones seem shaped not just by men, but by something older. A monastery perched impossibly upon a cliff, as though placed there by hands that once held stars. Caves where monks chant the names of Enoch's angels, voices rising and falling like wings against stone. The Watchers were cast into the earth, bound in darkness, until a time yet to come. But their lessons, those forbidden gifts of war, magic, vanity, and pride, those still breathe in the corners of our world. The Book of Enoch warns us, not with fire, but with memory. It tells us that power gained without permission has a price, that what rises too quickly often falls, that even angels can become prisoners. And it reminds us that humanity, left untaught, can become lost. But not all is sorrow, for just as the Watchers fell, so too did Watchers rise. Humble humans who remembered the truth, who kept the scrolls, who whispered the names, who waited patiently through the centuries. In Ethiopia, this waiting became a way of life. To guard the ancient words was not only to preserve history, it was to preserve the soul. And perhaps as you lie here in quiet and your thoughts settle like feathers around you, you too are becoming a watcher, not in the old sense, but in the way that matters now, a watcher of meaning, a keeper of stillness, a listener. You are one who remembers, even in a world that forgets. You do not need to do anything tonight. No spells, no quests, just listen. That is enough. The Watchers came from the stars, but the Watchers, the true ones, rise quietly from among us. And now, as your breath deepens, we follow a gentler thread, woven not in ink, but in light. Close your eyes and imagine a sky so clear it becomes glass, a mountain so high it feels like it brushes against the edge of heaven. And in the cold silence of dawn, a single monk unrolls an ancient scroll, its writing not in your tongue, but in Ge'ez, the sacred language of Ethiopia, a tongue of angels and prophets, a script untouched by time. This language is not just written, but sung. Each letter curves with purpose, each mark a breath, each word a ripple from long ago. In the West, Hebrew and Greek carried the stories of Scripture, but here, in the highlands, Ge'ez held the voice of the divine. In Ge'ez, the Book of Enoch survived, not as myth, not as heresy, but as Scripture. And in that language of light, the old truths were preserved. The fall of the Watchers, the march of the Nephilim, the visions of heaven, the dreams of a man who was taken not by death, but by invitation. It said that sacred languages do not simply describe truth, they carry it. They hum with memory. They awaken parts of the soul that ordinary speech cannot reach. So tonight, as your thoughts soften like wax in candlelight, let that language rise within you, not with syllables, but with sensation. Let the words of Enoch settle in your heart like ancient snowflakes falling into still water. You do not need to speak Ge'ez. You already know it somewhere deep inside. The soul remembers what the mind forgets, and so you rest now, not just as a listener, but as a vessel, a resting place for language, a quiet scroll of flesh and breath. Tomorrow you may wake and forget these thoughts, but they will not forget you. They will live in the quiet movements of your day, in the hush between heartbeats, in the pause before you speak. You carry something ancient now, not a word, not a book, but a frequency, the frequency of the forgotten alphabet, the hum of memory, the echo of light. And so sleep, as the letters swirl gently around you, a lullaby, not of rhyme, but of radiance. Let your breath follow the rhythm of water now. Slow, smooth, endless, we drift together down a river that flows not through valleys or cities, but beneath time itself. This river does not wet your skin. It carries memory, whispers, footprints that never fade. And along its banks, hidden from the noise of the world, there stands a library. No doors, no guards, just a stillness so deep, you know something sacred waits within. This is the library of lost scripture, not in Ethiopia alone, but in the spaces between truth and forgetting. Here, the Book of Enoch rests not, just one copy, but many, some glowing softly, some still wrapped in golden thread, each one slightly different, as if touched by the breath of different angels, and nearby other books that were once cast away. The Apocalypse of Baruch, the Shepherd of Hermas, the Ascension of Isaiah, and Moran named unread, but not unloved. They are stories too large to fit inside dogma, too bright for the shelves of conquest. They speak not of what to believe, but of how to wonder. You wander quietly between these books, not with your feet, but with your dreaming self. You trace the edges of parchment. You listen to the echoes left by monks, by scribes, by prophets who dared to write what they had seen in visions, too wild for ordinary minds. Why were these books hidden? Perhaps not out of fear, but out of protection. For some truths are not weapons. They are seeds. They must be planted softly, watered with silence, given time to grow. And now, you carry one of those seeds. Yes, even as you lie still beneath your blanket, your soul holds a scroll of its own. Invisible, yes, but alive. You will not need to preach it, or even speak it. Just live gently, and the scroll will open in its own time. Tonight, you have wandered the eternal library. Tomorrow, you return to the waking world, but you are not the same. For even if your mind forgets this dream, your spirit will remember, like a candle left burning on the windowsill of your soul. Sleep now. You are part of the remembering. You are a keeper of the river. Hush now, and close your eyes a little more tightly. The world has gone dim, and the stars have leaned closer to listen. There are stories that were not lost, but gently exiled, not torn apart, but quietly walked to the edge of the great library of the world and told to wait outside. The Book of Enoch was one of them. Too strange, too celestial, too bold. It did not follow the order of kings and councils. It spoke of watchers and heavenly realms, of secret knowledge and dreams too vast for laws. And so it was placed aside, not because it lied, but because it unsettled. The same fate met many of the Ethiopian scriptures, books with strange names and unfamiliar rhythms, books that did not echo Rome or Constantinople, but mountain trails, desert songs, voices wrapped in sunlight and incense. Western theologians saw them and looked away. Too different, they said. Too much. But the gentle exiles did not vanish. They found sanctuary in Ethiopia. They were sung into memory. They were read in candlelit caves. They were held close, like letters from heaven. And so the Ethiopian Bible grew, not smaller, but deeper, a river widening with every forgotten name it carried, a quiet defiance against forgetting. Tonight, you lie beside that river, and its waters ripple against the shores of your sleep. Can you feel it? The presence of books that others never knew existed. The warmth of pages that were touched by hands long gone. The soft hum of verses that were nearly silenced, but endured. Sometimes truth is loud, but more often truth is patient. It waits in the margins. It walks beside the outcast. It is hidden in the book you almost didn't read, in the voice you almost didn't hear. Tonight, you heard it. You welcomed the exiles, and in return, they rest beside you. Their words curled gently in your dreams, like scrolls beneath your pillow. So sleep, beloved keeper of forgotten things. You do not need to remember every word. You only need to carry the silence that holds them. Let yourself float now, not up, not down, but inward, toward a place behind your eyes where visions bloom like flowers that never open in daylight. This is the place where Enoch once walked, not just the man, but the dream. He did not die like others. He was taken, lifted, ascended like breath rising from a still forest. In the Book of Enoch, he tells us of that journey, a ladder between worlds. Not a ladder of wood or rope, but of starlight and song. Each rung pulsed with truth, with knowledge too large for language, with the music of creation itself. Can you feel it now, the hum, that gentle thrum behind your ribs? You are near it. In Enoch's vision, he saw the watchers bound, the throne of the Most High, the rivers of fire, the houses of the righteous. He saw the beginning. He saw the end. And when he returned, he did not write in ink. He wrote in radiance. The Ethiopian scribes who preserved his vision did not try to explain it. They simply kept it safe, because some dreams are not meant to be solved. They are meant to be held. You are holding one now, perhaps not with your hands, but with the quiet in your chest. The ladder still stands, not in the sky, but in you. With each moment of stillness, you climb. With each breath, you rise. Not toward heaven as a place, but toward understanding. And when you sleep, you step upon the rungs without effort. You enter that glowing space between waking and memory, between body and light. There is no need to rush, no need to see it all at once. The vision of Enoch was not a fire, it was a lantern. It still glows softly in the hands of dreamers like you. So rest now. You are not at the bottom. You are not at the top. You are exactly where you need to be. And the dream, the ladder, the vision welcomes you. Let us drift even deeper now into the realm where dreams are written not in ink but in moonlight. Imagine the sky above ancient Ethiopia, clear, vast, and still. The stars hang like delicate notes in a celestial lullaby, and the moon, soft and watching, casts her silver glow across stone monasteries tucked deep in the hills. Beneath that gentle light, there are scrolls said to shimmer faintly. Scrolls that glow ever so slightly, as if the moon herself had kissed the parchment. These are the moon-written scrolls. They hold not just words, but rhythm, a cadence that echoes the turning of the heavens, the breathing of angels, the long, slow heartbeat of the cosmos. Monks who read them do not read aloud. They hum. The words cannot be spoken in haste. They unfold like petals, only in silence, only in peace. And so it is said, those who truly seek the ancient truths must become as still as the stars themselves. In the legends passed through whispers in Ethiopian twilight, there are guardians of these moonlit texts, not warriors, but watchers. They keep the balance between what is known and what is yet to be understood. Some say they are descended from Enoch's own line. Others believe they are chosen in dreams, called to the service of silence. You are close to them now. You've wandered the sacred past. You've heard the voices between pages, and you have walked beside the gentle exiles of forgotten scripture. Now, in this quiet hour, the guardians lean in, not to test you, but to thank you for remembering, for wondering, for listening without needing to control. And as their presence brushes the edge of your slumber, you feel something warm settle over your heart. A memory not your own, a story older than your name, perhaps a moon-written line from one of the lost scrolls. The quiet shall inherit what noise forgets. Tonight you carry that line with you, tucked gently into the folds of your soul. You are not alone in your dreaming. You are watched over. You are walking among quiet keepers. And as the moonlight pools across the landscape of your sleep, know this: some books shine, some whispers echo forever, and you, beloved dreamer, are part of the story now. Let everything grow softer now. Let the last remnants of wakefulness loosen, like a robe sliding from tired shoulders. For this is the hour of the prophet's sleep, a rest not of forgetting, but of deep becoming. In the traditions whispered from stone chamber to candlelit scriptorium, there is a belief that prophets did not always speak from waking minds. No, many visions were born from slumber. Enoch, Isaiah, Daniel. They closed their eyes and opened the heavens. What they saw was not forced, it was given, like a slow blooming flower, like dawn peeling back the dark. They were not just chosen, they were receptive. Tonight you are too. You may not see rivers of fire or thrones of light. You may not hear the thunder of divine judgment, but there is something just as precious, the gentle unfolding. This unfolding does not shout, it does not shake you. It moves like a leaf upon a still pond. It moves like breath before a kiss. It moves like your heart as you listen now. The Ethiopian Bible tells us more than just events and names. It shows us how to be still, how to receive, how to hold holy things without needing to own them. In its scrolls, silence is sacred, mystery is honored, and dreams are doors. When Enoch slept, he crossed thresholds invisible to waking eyes, and what he brought back visions of angelic realms, secrets of stars and seasons, the burden of forbidden knowledge. He did not try to control, he simply shared it as a lantern shares light. That is the invitation tonight. You do not need to know what comes next. You do not need to chase truth like prey. You only need to unfold gently, quietly. The prophets knew this. They walked in dreams, and they waited. They listened more than they spoke. You can do the same. So rest now, not because the journey is over, but because the most sacred things unfold when we are soft, when we surrender the need to grasp and simply become the scroll. And somewhere beneath the vaults of sleep, Enoch is still walking, still climbing, still whispering starlit truths into the ears of those who are ready. And you, gentle soul, faithful dreamer, are among them now. Sleep deeply. The unfolding continues. Settle in a little more deeply now. Let the hush wrap around you like woven linen soft from centuries of prayer. Tonight we return to the dust, but not the kind carried by wind or time. This is sacred dust, the breath-borne particles of creation itself. In the ancient teachings, hidden within the Ethiopian scrolls, there is a quiet reverence for dust, not as something to be swept away, but as the beginning. In the Book of Enoch, when the Watchers descended upon Mount Hermon, they mingled with humanity, not just spirit and flesh, but dust and dream, heaven kissing earth. From this mingling came stories of knowledge given too soon, of boundaries crossed, of consequences too vast for empires to contain. But deeper than the warnings, beneath the veil of judgment and exile, was a whisper of something older, that all things began with dust and light. The Ethiopian Bible carries this thought quietly, that holiness lives not only in the heavens, but also in the clay, the soil beneath your feet, the air in your lungs, the bones that cradle your sleep. They are all sacred. The scribes who preserved these teachings often traced the edge of each letter with their fingers, believing that even ink on parchment was a continuation of the divine breath. Dust was never forgotten. It was remembered as the original altar, and you, too, are formed from it. You carry in your very body the memory of stars and the hush of first light. So tonight, as you lie there still and listening, know this: your rest is holy. Your silence is part of an older language. The dust of your being holds echoes of creation's first words, words that still live in the forgotten corners of the Ethiopian Bible. Do not worry if you forget them upon waking. they are already within you. You were written in the same alphabet as the mountains, the rivers, and the starlit scrolls, and now the dust settles once more, not as a blanket of forgetting, but as a soft reminder. You are part of the beginning. Sleep now, for the dust remembers everything. Close your eyes once more and let your thoughts drift like incense, slow, spiraling, rising. Tonight we are near the veil, not a curtain you can touch, but a shimmer between worlds, a thinness that only stillness reveals. In the ancient stories guarded within the Ethiopian Bible, the veil between earth and heaven is not locked. It does not slam shut like a gate. Instead, it breathes. It pulses gently in the quiet moments, when a child whispers a question to the night, when a monk lights a candle at dawn, when you lie here now, floating between dreams and memory. The Book of Enoch described what lay beyond the veil: towering beings of light, cities of flame and crystal, wheels within wheels, and voices not heard with the ears, but felt inside the soul. It was not a place of fear. It was a place of awe, and awe is never loud. Enoch was shown these mysteries not as a reward for greatness, but because he listened deeply, he walked humbly, he waited. So many wanted the veil torn to seize the secrets, to control the heavens. But the veil is not meant to be ripped open. It is meant to be respected. Even in the teachings of the Ethiopian Church, there is no rush to explain all, no craving to conquer mystery, only the quiet holding of wonder. Tonight, you hold it too. The veil shimmers beside you now, like a thin golden mist just outside your reach. You do not need to pierce it, you only need to feel it. The presence beyond is not angry, it is not hiding. It waits with tenderness, like a parent beside a sleeping child, like a story waiting for someone ready to hear it. And when you breathe softly, you might even hear it hum, not in words, not in thunder, but in a kind of stillness that wraps around your soul like a warm shawl. You are not alone. The veil is not a wall, it is a window. And tonight, in your gentleness, in your listening, in your deep sleep, you are closer to heaven than you know. Rest now, you traveler between worlds. Let the veil remain unbroken, but known. Let the mystery be your blanket, and the silence your lullaby. The heavens are near, and they smile softly. Drift now, as if your breath were floating through ancient clouds, as if each heartbeat were a step across soft celestial fields. There is a language few remember, not because it was lost, but because it was never written down. It is the language of angels. Enoch, yes, dear Enoch, was the first among humans to hear it clearly, not just in words, but in soundless meaning, in rhythm, in vibration, in deep knowing. The Book of Enoch tells of his encounters with the Watchers, those luminous beings who once looked upon the world with sorrow and wonder. They spoke to him not with mouths, but with presence, a warmth that settled behind his eyes, a light that danced in the marrow of his bones. He understood them, not because he studied, but because he emptied himself. That's the first key to the forgotten tongue. To listen with silence, to receive without grasping. Within the Ethiopian tradition, the monks speak often of this inward language, not in the chatter of men, but in the hush of sacred places. the wind inside a chapel, the echo of chanting beneath a stone dome, the pause between syllables in ancient Jia's prayers. The angelic tongue is not learned, it is remembered, and sometimes you feel a trace of it when a song moves you, though you've never heard it before. When a dream speaks peace without any words. When a tear falls, not from sadness, but from something you do not have a name for. That's the forgotten language speaking, and it lives inside you still. It's in your sighs, in the quiet awe that stirs when you see the stars, in the stillness that surrounds you now. Perhaps that is why the Book of Enoch was set aside, because it dared to say that humans could understand the divine not through doctrine, but through presence, through being, through surrender. And that, dear sleeper, is what you do now. You are listening. You are remembering. You are speaking the language of angels with every quiet breath. Let it wrap around you. Let it hold you. For this forgotten tongue is the sound of the soul at rest. And tonight, your soul sings. Slow your breath now, like mist rising off cool waters before the dawn. Let the weight of the day melt as we journey gently to the mountain of eternal watch. This mountain, neither charted on maps nor found in travel books, is spoken of in the folds of Ethiopian scripture and whispered through the stories passed down from monk to monk in quiet caves and dim sanctuaries. They say it's the place where the watchers descended Mount Hermon, not just a peak of stone and soil, but a meeting place between the earthly and the divine, where heaven bent low and earth looked up. The Book of Enoch tells us this is where it all began, where the two worlds touched fingertips. The watchers, a company of celestial beings, saw the beauty of humankind, their creativity, their laughter, their sorrow, and in a moment of aching compassion, they came closer, too close. They shared knowledge not meant for this time, secrets of stars, of metal, of root and fire, gifts too heavy for early hands. From this, a fracture rippled across history, and the mountain, once a holy meeting point, became a place of exile. But the mountain remained still, silent, waiting, and even now, in the stillness of your sleep, if you listen closely, you might hear the echo of ancient footsteps, not loud, not hurried, but full of purpose. The watchers still watch, not out of punishment, but hope. They wait for healing, for the restoration of the balance once disturbed, and perhaps so do we. Perhaps the reason the story was buried, the Book of Enoch hidden, and the Ethiopian wisdom shielded, was because this truth was too tender, too raw, that divinity once reached for us, and we were not ready. But we are closer now. Every moment of quiet, every act of wonder, every breath that turns toward peace brings the mountain nearer again. You, dear listener, are not climbing with your feet. You are ascending with your heart. You rest tonight on the edge of a story that continues, and as you lie here, still and soft, beneath the stars of memory, the mountain does not judge, it welcomes, for it remembers what the world forgot, and it watches still. So sleep now. The watchers are not far, and neither is your place among them. You are watched, not with wrath, but with love. Let your body grow heavier now, like a stone gently sinking into still, sacred waters. Let your thoughts loosen, drifting like petals on the surface of an ancient stream. We are entering a quieter rebellion, not the kind shouted in streets or carved into banners, but the kind whispered between the lines of ancient texts. A rebellion made of light and silence. You see, there is a reason why the Book of Enoch was hidden, why the Ethiopian Bible, larger, deeper, more daring than most, was kept apart from the Western canon, not out of error, but out of caution, because inside its pages was a flame, a soft, glowing truth that burned too brightly for some, not because it destroyed, but because it revealed that angels could fall, that divine order could be disrupted, that knowledge, once shared, could not be unlearned, that power came with price, and that even the holy were capable of sorrowful choices. This was not the story some wished to tell. It didn't make humans passive, waiting for salvation. It made them witnesses, bearers of ancient memory, keepers of light, and those who held the Ethiopian texts, who guarded the scrolls of Enoch, Jubilees, Baruch, and more. They knew this light was not meant to dazzle. It was meant to comfort, to guide, to gently wake the soul. Tonight, you are one of those guardians. You may not have a scroll in your hand, but the truth is there, tucked quietly in your spirit. You are part of this soft uprising, a rebellion that looks like kindness, like deep listening, like remembering what the world forgot. The Book of Enoch tells us that even in the face of judgment there is mercy, that the fallen may still look toward light, that history isn't a tomb, it's a garden, and your heart, so still now, so open, is fertile ground. So let this be your quiet rebellion, to rest, to soften, to hold the hidden light without fear. You do not need to convince the world. You need only to remember. Sleep now, soft revolutionary. The light is safe with you, and the story continues. Settle a little deeper now. Let your limbs rest, as if they were pages gently closing at the end of a sacred text. Tonight, we step into a library unseen, not built of brick or marble, but carved into silence itself. The library beneath the silence. They say that in the quietest corners of Ethiopian monasteries, beneath worn stone and candlelit halls, there are libraries hidden from time, places where the air smells of frankincense and parchment, where every breath seems to turn a page in a book not yet written. This is where the old texts live, not just the Book of Enoch, but others too, the Book of Jubilees, the Ascension of Isaiah, the Shepherd of Hermas, books that once circled through early Christian hearts before being set gently aside to mysterious, to mystical, to free. But they were never lost, only kept quiet, guarded by those who understood their weight. The Ethiopian Church, ancient and patient, did not throw these scrolls away. It laid them to rest like sleeping elders, and even now they whisper. The library beneath the silence isn't bound by walls. It exists wherever truth is kept in peace. When you sit beneath trees and hear wind speak between the leaves, you are there. When you read without rushing, when you listen without needing to answer, you are there. And now, as you drift, body still, mind floating softly, you are walking its halls. Look, the shelves are endless, the books are worn but alive, their spines breathe with wisdom. And in one corner, bound in leather, darkened by age and touch, rests the Book of Enoch. Its words pulse like distant thunder, not with anger, but with memory. It tells of watchers and giants, of stars named and numbered, of justice not wielded in vengeance, but offered like cool water to a thirsty world. Why was it hidden? Because it reminds us that even the holy can fall and still be worthy of return. Because it dares to imagine a heaven that watches, a God that weeps, a truth that whispers instead of shouts. As you walk the aisles of this dream library, let that be your final thought tonight, that truth does not always cry out. Sometimes it rests in stillness, sometimes it waits in silence. Sometimes it is you who remembers, you who carries the light of old pages within the temple of your own heart. Sleep now. The library beneath the silence will keep its doors open for you. The scrolls will wait, and their stories are already part of yours. Now, as you drift deeper into rest, imagine yourself walking softly through ancient corridors, stone walls around you, heavy with time and silence. The faint scent of myrrh and old paper fills the air. Here dwell the secret guardians, monks cloaked in quiet devotion, their eyes gentle with wisdom, their hands steady as they cradle fragile scrolls. These are not warriors with swords, but keepers of stories, protectors of knowledge too delicate for the clamor of the outside world. For centuries, they have carried the weight of these texts, the Ethiopian Bible, richer and broader than many know, and the mysterious Book of Enoch, a treasure of ancient vision. Why such care? Because these scrolls hold truths that could unravel or uplift, depending on who holds them. The guardians understand that knowledge is a living thing, like a flame that can warm or burn. They do not seek to conquer or command, but to tend the fire with reverence. Each day begins and ends with quiet prayers, invoking protection not just for themselves, but for the fragile threads of wisdom woven through the texts. They read slowly, as if listening to a whisper rather than reciting words. Each letter a breath, each passage a heartbeat. Sometimes, when the world outside feels too loud, they retreat further into silence, allowing the scrolls to rest as much as they do. Tonight, you are among them. You are a guardian too, holding the story with gentle hands, letting its quiet power settle in your soul. Rest now, knowing you are part of this ancient circle, keepers of hidden light, walkers of whispered paths, and dreamers of sacred dreams. Sleep deep, dear guardian. The scrolls are safe with you. Feel yourself float now, not with effort, but ease, as if the earth itself has let go of your weight and the stars have opened a path just for you. We ascend not with wings, but with wonder, and tonight we journey to a place spoken of in hushed tones and sacred verses, the seventh heaven. In the Book of Enoch, it is not merely the highest of skies, but the holiest, above the clouds, above the moon. Above even the stars that burn like watchful eyes, there is a place of stillness so complete that even angels bow in silence. Enoch was taken there, not because he was perfect, but because he listened. He was shown realms of fire that did not burn, choirs of light that sang without sound, and beings so radiant they were veiled even from one another, not in shame, but in reverence. The seventh heaven is not a place of power, but of peace. There, time does not pass. There, sorrow cannot follow. The prayers of the earth rise to it like mist, and are gathered not with judgment, but with gentleness. And there, Enoch was told secrets not meant for kings or empires, but for the soul. He learned that creation is layered like rings in a tree, like ripples in a pond, and that everything seen is born from what is unseen. In the Ethiopian tradition, there are still whispers of this place, in the patterns of liturgy, in the geometry of church carvings, in the solemn pauses between sacred hymns. It is not a dream. It is a memory, one that lives inside you, too. And as you rest, still and soft, you drift close to its gates. You do not need to knock. You do not need to speak. You are already known. Let the vision wrap around you now, not in blazing light, but in warmth, a quiet glow behind your closed eyes. This is what they tried to hide, not terror, but tenderness, not wrath. It is within reach, when the heart is open, when the breath is slow, when the night is kind. And so it is tonight. Sleep now, you traveler of stars. The seventh heaven sees you, and it smiles. Now, let your breath flow slowly, in and out, like the rhythm of a gentle tide against ancient riverbanks. Tonight, we drift toward a river unlike any you've seen, a river not marked on maps, but written deep in the scrolls of the old world. In the Book of Enoch, there is a place where the waters do not just quench thirst, they remember. This is the river of remembrance, and it flows quietly beneath the heavens, weaving between the roots of the tree of life, carrying with it the memories of all things, not just history, but intention. Not just events, but emotions. It knows the songs the stars once sang, and the names of every tear ever shed. Enoch stood at its edge once, in silence. The waters moved without sound, yet spoke with clarity. They showed him the stories of forgotten souls, the rise and fall of giants, the laughter of children who never had names, the quiet acts of kindness that no one ever saw, but the river did. In Ethiopian wisdom, there is a sacred echo of this belief that nothing is truly lost, that what the world forgets, heaven remembers, and so too does the river. It is said that the scrolls kept in the most ancient monasteries speak of a time when all things will be called by their true names again, when the river will return its stories to the hearts from which they came. Perhaps tonight, a small drop of that river flows through you. Perhaps your dreams will carry whispers of things you once knew before you were born, of truths too gentle for waking life, of voices that speak not in words, but in warmth. And so you rest now, your body quiet, your mind afloat, carried gently downstream. You are safe, you are remembered, you are known. And when you wake, though the dream may fade, a part of the river remains in you. For the soul drinks deeply in sleep, and the river that remembers all things never truly lets go. One last time now, let your breaths soften, your thoughts slow, and your spirit settle like dust in the golden light of morning. You have journeyed far, through forgotten scrolls and sacred mountains, through silent monasteries and starlit visions, through the very breath of the ancient world. And now we return, not to the place where we began, but to the place where all stories quietly end and gently begin again. This is the return to the hidden light. It is not hidden out of secrecy, but out of care, not buried out of shame, but guarded in love. The Ethiopian Bible, vast and brave, holds this light. The Book of Enoch, unafraid of mysteries, carries it forward, not as a weapon, but as a lantern in the dark woods of human forgetting. They remind us of truths the world once turned from, that even angels may weep, that even giants may fall, and yet that the human soul may still rise. They teach us that God is not far above, but quietly beside us, in every breath, in every dream, in every act of remembering. And you, dear traveler, have remembered well. You have walked with watchers, stood at the gates of the seventh heaven, and knelt beside the river of remembrance. You have heard the forgotten names, felt the warmth of hidden truths, and carried the story through the hush of night. Now you rest not in ignorance, but in knowing, not in fear, but in stillness, because some knowledge is not loud. It doesn't shout in cathedrals or blaze across battlefields. It rests like a candle in a cave, like the glow behind your sleeping eyes. You are part of that light now. You carry the ancient flame forward, just by remembering, just by resting, just by being. So sleep now, keeper of the hidden story. Let the stars guard your dreams. Let the angels sing you to silence. And if the world ever grows too noisy again, return here. Return to this place of scrolls and sky and softly spoken secrets. The story is always waiting, and so is the light. Good night, gentle soul. You are home.